having already explored the mechanical aspect of the Ferrex 40-volt angle grinder from Aldi in the UK, but probably sold in other countries as well under different brands, I thought it would be good to explore the circuit board that actually controls the motor in that, because it seems to have the battery monitoring it. It has the ability to shut the power off to the tool if the battery is getting low. Now, it's worth mentioning the battery has 5 terminal positions here, marked B1 plus, B2 minus, B1 minus, B1 plus should I say, and B2 plus. And then in the middle, it's got 2 stack terminals marked ID and T for temperature presumably, and a little battery level indicator. So internally this is effectively 2 20-volt batteries, or 18-volt as most other power tool companies would call them, that can either be connected presumably in parallel for the 20-volt tools, or in this case, series for the 40-volt tools. I'm going to put this down on the ground, out of the way, because these are the interesting bits we want to take a look at. So the battery contact block that sits in the tool has the circuit board in the back of it, sitting on roughly like that, very hard to remove. The terminals are held in, they're slotted in like this, and then a little dovetail strip is pushed in like that locks them in position. And presumably then, because you can't really pre-solder this and then slide it in, this must have then been put in and pushed down those terminals and then soldered, and the anchor screw put in there for the robustness of the connection, the mounting. Very hard to get out, because I was hoping to just slide it out, but there's little tines in the side that go into indents in the circuit board that stopped it coming out. Very annoying. Other things that were in the tool was a changeover switch. There's a reason for that. Although the wires are all the same size, one of them's not really taking much current because it is just an indication wire, but the other ones are taking the full current of the tool but not controlling it completely. And this is a very loud clicky switch, which is rated 25 amps, 84 volts. It's quite stiff for a micro switch. There was also a common mode style suppression inductor, or choke, whatever you want to call it, inside. Right, let's take a look at the circuit board. I have a picture I've taken of the circuit board. Here is the back of it for a start. The circuit board is going to look messy because it had a conformal coating on it that was extremely hard to remove. Very messy on the other side. Overall, the sort of important circuitry here to give it, well, outdoor tool resilience. But that made it extremely hard to reverse engineer because it was this gooey, sticky silicone, but with a sort of plasticky layer on top of it. Very strange. Very hard to remove. Now, things worthy of note. They have just connected to the batteries directly in series here, and they're only using one of the 2 middle connections. They're using the one marked NTC, but I think there's more to it than just the NTC temperature sensing. I think this is basically the battery's I am OK pin, and it can either tell the tool, yes, you can run, or it can say battery's low, or overheating, no, you can't run. It's strange that the markings are different on the battery, but it doesn't really matter. It's just basically these ones round back to front, I think, another one on the battery itself, but it doesn't really matter. Things worthy of note in the back, these odd tapered solder joints, I guess, are they just for spreading current? It's quite strange. But not much in the way of the control circuitry, just really tracks, just mainly big chunky reinforcement of tracks on the other side. Okay, let's take a look at the other side. The circuit board is upside down, but that's just the way I reverse engineered it. Things worthy of note. Here is the Mosfet standing up here. It is a KIA, hold on, I'm going to have to read this with a magnifying glass. KIA 2906A. And that's a fair about 120 volts, I think, but a fairly high current. Mounted very close, literally mounted hard onto the circuit board with the leads physically cropped right up to the base of the unit itself. We've got the motor load, which is it's got a Schottky diode across it for the back EMF suppression, and also a capacitor across it for filtering. Both these are to protect the transistor from damage when the motor's turned off. Just sweeping stuff off here. It's covered in little bits of this horrible conformal coating that was over it. Very annoying. 2 wires going out to the motor, 3 wires going out to the switch. The common of the switch switches to the yellow wire when you basically pull the trigger, when you turn it on, and that activates the circuitry. It tells the processor, this little 8-pin processor here, that it's been powered up, and the processor will then use pulse-width modulation to ramp it up. It doesn't just slam it on. Although this the switch is actually enabling power to the motor, the bulk of the work is actually in the initial current is going through the Mosfet, because the Mosfet doesn't turn on initially, but it ramps the speed up to give it a soft start. When you let go of the switch, it does something interesting. It does kill the power to that circuitry, but it also sends a signal via this wire over to the processor to tell it that it has been turned off. So even if there's a residual charge in the capacitor here, it will still know that it has to do a reset if the trigger gets pulled again. Quite odd. Anything else worth mentioning? Yes. This is a standard transistor being used as a first stage voltage regulator. This is a standard 7805. I'll show you them in the schematic. There are quite a lot of transistors. Again, I'll show you in the schematic. It's probably the best thing. And a programming port over here. Okay, let's go straight to the schematic. Actually, the schematic, since there are 3 of them, because it is quite complicated. Let's get in just a little bit closer. Focus down onto there. So here are the 2 batteries wired in the series. Excuse any huskiness in the voice. I have a bug. I'm under the weather at the moment. That's fine. There's another connection coming off the battery, and it's the NTC, which is that enabling thing. There's a switch that switches between the off signal to the processor, the on signal to the processor, but in the on position it also powers the motor circuit, which is then enabled by the Mosfet, which is also controlled from the processor. But it also provides power via this diode to this capacitor and to this circuitry here, which has a couple of resistors to help remove some of the dissipation because it is 40 volts. But it's got a discrete transistor, NPN transistor with a Zener diode on its base and a current feed over to it to act as a basic voltage regulator. And let's just correct this drawing right now. Let's get rid of that and actually put it down to the right bit. That would be much better, wouldn't it? How unprofessional of me. Hold on. Where's my wee error eraser? Here it is. Tipex error eraser. The error has been erased. Good enough. So that provides a base voltage of 12 volts, and that is used mainly for driving the Mosfet, because the higher the gate voltage of the Mosfet, you can turn them on quite hard. Yeah, it means you can use a more rugged Mosfet, because the logic level ones, the ones that operate at super low voltage, just tend to maybe not have such a low on state resistant, or tend to be aimed at sort of lower power tasks. But after that, the 12 volt, we've got the 12 volt supply, and that also takes a lot of strain off the 7805 regulator. It produces a 5 volt supply for the microcontroller. And the 7805 typically has a voltage rating up to about 35 volts, I think, which means that the 40 volts would have been well exceeding that. So by using a standard transistor, roughly regulating down to 12 volts, and then the 5 volts spreads the dissipation, as do these resistors here. They're all taking a bit of a share of that. Okay, so what have we got? We've got the 2 signals going over to the processor off and on, and we've also got the Mosfet feedback and the NTC thermistor signal. So here's the Mosfet gate control. And more Tipex tape, because just before making this video I thought I'll just write in the numbers of the transistors. I mixed those 2 up. Oh, bollocks. Not to worry. So there's the 40 volts, there's the motor, there's the Mosfet. It's interesting how it's being driven. The microcontroller switches this transistor on when it wants to actually power the Mosfet. Now normally before anything's even started up, there is a 10k resistor from the gate of the Mosfet down to the 0 volt rail to make sure the Mosfet is off and in a stable state. Otherwise, they're so sensitive that if you just turned it on before the processor had a chance to stabilize the Mosfet, could have actually caused motor rotation or just sat there and dissipated some heat. So the 10k resistor brings it into a stable state. That's also useful if other parts of the circuitry go wrong. But when it wants to turn it on, because it's going to actually take it positive to the 12 volt rail, there is this this PNP transistor, which pulls the gate up positive via this 39 ohm resistor. That transistor is normally turned off because it's a PNP. you have to pull it negative, the base negative with respect to the positive rail, as opposed to NPN, which is the opposite. So when you turn this transistor on, it pulls that base negative via this resistor. It also does another thing. It turns this little tiny MOSFET off, and this is just a signal MOSFET, something like a 2N7002, just marked 702. But it turns that MOSFET off, it turns this one on, and that takes the gate positive. When the processor turns it off, it removes the signal from this transistor turns off, that transistor then gets pulled up to positive, it turns off. But now, because this transistor's off, the current is flowing through these resistors, and it actually goes to the base of this MOSFET, and it turns it on, and that makes sure that the gate gets pulled to the 0 volt rail via this 20 ohm resistor. So it's pretty much pushing and pulling, and that's purely for the reason that it is being pulse modulated, and to make sure it's done efficiently, it uses high current via this 39 ohm resistor to charge the capacitor and the gate of this MOSFET, and then it uses this 20 ohm one to discharge it, and that just means it turns on a lot faster and turns off a lot faster than if you were just driving it directly from the processor, which would make it so much simpler if it was. Next comes the inputs. Oh God, it's so easy to describe this when I've drawn it all out. It was not easy to reverse engineer it. It took quite some time, largely because of the effort required to actually get that coating off things like transistors, just to be able to read them and probe about on it. The probes also had to pierce that gelatinous gooey stuff, which was quite tough. So when you squeeze the trigger to the on position, there's a 3K pull down resistor in the input to the microcontroller, an inline 30K resistor, and that just sends pretty much the full 40 volts here, but it gets divided down by these resistors to a tenth, which is about 4 volts, which is enough for the processor. And this capacitor just filters that and just makes sure that glitches and transients don't affect it. When you release the trigger and it goes off, you can't really do the same thing, because otherwise there'd be a fairly high current flow. What would the current flow at 40 volts be? So we can work the current flow out. That's 33K. So 40 volts divided by 33K equals, it's 1.2 milliamps. That might not sound a lot, but if the tool sits in your toolbox or in your workshop for a long time, the battery in, that is significant. It will gradually trickle discharge it. And if you've used the tool until it cut out and then put it into storage without charging it again, that's worse, because it can actually trickle it down below the point it can recover. So in this instance, they use a MOSFET to get a much higher input impedance. So the processor presumably has a pull-up resistor in there, and it's got this little low signal MOSFET to pull it to the 0 volt rail. But this time, they've got a 2 megohm resistor from the off position, a zener to clamp the voltage to protect that MOSFET, which isn't really rated for a high gate voltage. But they've also got a 10 megohm resistor here, and a capacitor for filtering. And now if we calculate that again, 40 volts divided by the 12 megohms, 12 million ohms, that comes out at about 3 microamps, which is a lot better than milliamps. Yeah, interesting. So the other thing the processor has, there's the output to the main MOSFET. It looks like MOSFET, but it is the main MOSFET. It also has this capacitive resistor network here, which it's not connected to anything else. It's just basically a 1K resistor and capacitor. I wondered if that was a part of a reset circuit, but it may actually be part of an oscillator, I'm not sure. And the only other part of the circuitry is this 10K pull down resistor with a capacitor in parallel, and then the NTC signal from the battery pack, which I think isn't just a temperature thing. I think it is temperature and battery status. I think it's probably just a logic level that's being sent to the processor to tell it when it can and can't run. Presumably, because this is pulling to the 0 volt rail, maybe the processor pulls, no, it wouldn't. It's probably going to have to take it positive to actually basically enable it, perhaps. And then when you unplug it, the battery, well, nothing would really happen, unplug the battery. But when it actually signals the battery is low, maybe it just lets go of that line and it drops to 0. I'm not really sure. We shall explore the battery at a later point and see what's in that. So that is more or less it. Most of the circuitry in this board is, well, half the transistors are for driving the Mosfet, and the rest is just discrete sort of level shifting and basically impedance changing to allow for long storage times of the tool. That is it. So quite interesting. Slightly different to what I was expecting. Let's zoom back out here. I thought there might be more. I thought there might be data. I mean, there could be data coming from that pin on the battery. But there's only one way to find out, and that's to look at the battery itself and see what sort of signal is coming out of that, if it's just from discrete components or if it's from a process or something. Because that will have to indicate, that will have to monitor both separate sections of the battery with a common signal. So that's going to be quite interesting. But that is it. That is the circuit board inside a typical 40 volt tool. Well, certainly the angle grinder from the Aldi Ferrex range.